started streaming.
Rich, how are you? Pretty good. How about you, Matt? Too bad.
You were speaking about peaking, were you talking about New York State or
No, this is nationwide.
nation?
Yeah, these are the national charts.
You can start anytime, Ira, because you were mayor or committee members besides
Good.
Steve Brody.
And we can talk to ourselves.
Yeah,
Yeah, your committee's only 3 people officially.
so you can just start.
Two of us are here.
Okay, well, then I will. I call the meeting of the Governance Operations Committee to order. Beth, would you call the roll?
Counselor Barbell,
Here.
Counselor Brody, Mayor Reed,
Present.
Counselor Kelly.
Here.
We can begin. I think, first of all, I'm just going to let you know that over the next 2 weeks, I'll probably be meeting with Matt, with you, and Sylvia to go over the budget, and then to kind of finalize some decisions, hopefully in the next week or so, any changes and modifications that we would want in the budget that's already there. Now, could you, Matt, I think you got a list of 2 or 3 items that if you could just give an update
Yeah,
on
sure.
those.
Best you bring the microphone
Oh, yeah.
with you there. Thanks.
Just a few updates on a few of the items that the Community Development Office is working on. The update of the city's comprehensive plan. As the council knows, that is wrapped up in a grant that is also addressing finalization of the city's LRAP and a update of the city's zoning code.
Could you just say what LRAP is? This is.
Sure, local
Are we still
waterfront.
online with these meetings?
Yep.
Yeah, just for anybody that actually might be online.
Sure, it's the city's local waterfront revitalization plan, which was drafted originally in 2016 by Saratoga Associates, but was never formally adopted per the state guidelines. So those 3 documents are being updated as part of a grant that the city received from the Department of State. The plan for updating the documents is to first create an updated version of the LRAP that will reflect what has happened between 2016 and 2020, and a few of the updated guidelines for LRAPs that have been issued by New York State since then. Once that is completed and is in the pipeline for finalization, which is a several month-long process, that document will be used to inform an update of the city's comprehensive plan and also of its zoning code. So we anticipate that the updated LRAP will be submitted to New York State within the next month. And we believe that within a month or 2 after that, we can get into the nuts and bolts of updating the comprehensive plan and the zoning update. Regarding the City Rec Center, as of Monday, the YMCA began their summer camp there. They have between 50 and 60 kids who will be there between now and the end of August. I spoke to the Y director today. He said that everything is working very well, and they are looking forward to summer there with those kids. And we also wanted to encourage any parents of children in the area who, considering the limited options for recreation that are available right now, If you are looking for something fun for your kids to do during the summer, please reach out to the Y. I'm sure they can accommodate several additional kids there.
Yeah, I just know that I went by today, the last 2 days, and kids seemed to be having a great time out on the oval. They're outside and well-run. You drive in to bring your child to the day camp, and they're asking you questions, taking your temperature. All kinds of protocols are in place to protect the children from exposure to any virus, and breaking out in small groups when they're out on the oval. So it looks like it's a well-run and, a safe place for your children to go.
Yep, absolutely, and they're following all the COVID protocols, of course. The third update is regarding the Saranac River Trail, and I just wanted to clear up some confusion that has been expressed. There seems to be an impression that the city has abandoned its plans to move forward with the Saranac River Trail. That is not the case. What has been decided was for the existing bids based on the original scope of work, the council decided to reject those and instructed my office to go back to the various funding agencies to see if they would approve a reduced scope of work that would result in a second round of bidding and hopefully bids that are more in line with the budget that the council has already approved for that project. In the weeks since we received that direction from the council, we have gone to the various funding agencies involved. They have agreed to a reduced scope of work. And just today, we received from our project engineer, Stantec, an updated set of project drawings and bid documents. So we are going to start reviewing those, pass them through the necessary channels at the funding agencies. Once we have final approval from them, we can start with the second round of bidding. And hopefully with that and the reduced scope, we will get one bid at least that the council can approve, and we can move forward with that project hopefully this year still.
So what would be that time frame? Do you think from putting the bids out and getting some feedback, or hopefully multiple bids back, but that if we get a bid back, is that a 30, 60-day time frame that you would have before?
Yeah, the original bid timeline, I believe, was between maybe 30 and 35 days, and then a few weeks after that to evaluate the bids because they are very complex. And then, so probably between, I'd say, 60 and 90 days before we get to a point where construction might be starting.
So early fall?
Early fall, yes.
So they'd have a couple of months, really, that they could do.
They'd have a couple of months, and depending on the lead times for a few of the materials, the bridges specifically, the construction would likely have to be split up into 2 construction seasons, some's taking place this fall and then some in the spring. But of course, that would depend on, what they can find from the manufacturers.
Thanks.
Yep.
Matt?
Yep.
Does the reduced scope keep us within the funding we've already got in place, or is it still gonna mean an increase in funding? for the
It would,
project?
if the bids received reflect the current engineer's estimate, we would still need between an additional $200,000 to $250,000 in commitments from the council.
That's what you expected.
That's what we were expecting, yeah.
So another
We can't take anything else off of it without impairing the ability of the city to get reimbursed for the work after it's done, because there are several guidelines attached to the funding that we have to follow. So there's only so much we can take out without jeopardizing that reimbursement.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
And I think Patrick McFarland, Councilor McFarland, is not here right now, but wanted an update on the farmer's market. I'm not quite sure what he wanted, but maybe you could just tell us where the status of that is now.
Sure. Back in March, I believe, the city did release a bid specification for some improvements down at the old MLD site. The city did receive one bid in response to that. Based on the changed financial circumstances of the city resulting from the COVID pandemic, we felt it was more appropriate not to commit to those improvements and the funding until the Durkee project, the Prime project, was approved and any litigation was resolved successfully, at which point the relocation of the farmers market would become a necessity. The timeline that we're currently looking at is final approval of that project sometime either this summer or fall. With the litigation, it's hard to say when that will get resolved, but hopefully over the winter. So this fall, we could rebid the project with the intention of having a contractor in place, ready to do the work and to start first thing in the spring, so that they can complete the work before the farmer's market would open for their 2021 season, so they would have the new building ready to go.
So essentially, the farmer's market's staying right where it is for this summer anyway.
For the 2020 season, yes.
Yeah, that should make some time ago.
Yeah.
Yep.
All right, I would hope that's what he was looking for, but, okay, thank you very much.
Sure.
Chamberlain, how much more is the city on the hook for the Saranac River Trail compared to what was originally proposed a couple of years ago, 4 years ago, when the previous engineer?
We've already borrowed and committed $574,000. We got a recent capital project revision for another $588,000. And that hasn't been borrowed yet. That's part of the funding that we have to go after here shortly. So another $250 on top of the $588.
So it's 1.4 million more the city's on the hook for than anticipated?
Well, there was two projects. There was an original design
Yeah, there's a
project.
the original capital.
$230,000.
Yeah.
And that's done. I don't recall the original amount that the city had to commit to the phase two. I have to go look at the capital project revisions, because there's been 5 of them, I believe, or 4 of them. So I'm not sure the original, but where we are right now is 574 has been borrowed and committed and pretty much spent. Another 588, 2 something is to be borrowed, plus this 250 now. So yeah, the city's into it for over $1 million. I don't know what the original requirement was for matching.
When did, do you know when the Saranac River Trail projects were initiated?
Phase
Engineering
two was
was-
2014, I believe.
That's right.
Yeah.
And phase two would be from the police station down to the
Down
high
to,
school?
So, yeah, it would be from the police station, to the intersection of Durkee and Broad Streets.
6 years ago, it was approved.
I'm gonna guess that the original commitment from the city was only supposed to be about $250,000
Yeah, I think that's about right.
Sounds right.
in that neighborhood.
So
I'll check it and send you an email on it. for
sounds
sure.
like we're about 500 or 600% over budget. in Taxpayer commitment, very worthwhile project, obviously, but huge.
How did that happen? I know the passing of time has something to do with it.
Well, the bridge demolition, the Pine Street Bridge demolition was included. I don't think that was originally anticipated, that 2 bridges instead of 1 to replace it was another increase.
Okay.
Yeah, the Saranac Street Bridge originally was not supposed to have been removed, but when they did the original inspection, it was found to be in such disrepair that it presented a public danger, so they recommended and the city went forward with demolition of the existing span, which subsequently necessitated the purchase of a brand-new bridge rather than the renovation of the existing one.
If that bridge wasn't such in bad shape, why wasn't that discovered and talked about during the initial evaluation process?
Well, it was before Matt's time, you'd have to ask the previous engineer.
Well, I think that's a fair question to ask, though, is,
The bridge had been condemned and was just restricted to foot traffic for a dozen years.
yes,
And
I use that bridge myself many times. It's in my neighborhood, and I didn't, I'm not an engineer, so I can't say, but I didn't really think there was all that much wrong with it. I suppose Kevin Farrington didn't imagine that either, but
as a footbridge, I thought it was still sound, but then again, the engineering review said that it had to be demolished because it was unsafe, too much
Yeah.
rust and so forth.
so that then was the problem. That the project grew in scope. It had to have 2 bridges instead of 1. I just wonder if there's some other way to do this. Is there some way to build a bike path on Pine Street that has no bridges? It ends in the same place,
Yeah, but then you'd have the same thing that Matt just had to go through, is renegotiating with DOT, and I think if you take the bridges out, they're gonna take their contribution out.
Yeah, one of the primary requirements of the 1.4 million in federal funding for that project is a continuous path across the river at Pine Street, around the MGP site, the NICEAG site, and then back over the river to Durkee Street. If we don't maintain that, then we would not get that money back.
If the council says no on this additional funding, what happens?
If the council decides that the bid's received, they simply can't justify the additional cost, then the federal funding and the $500,000 parks grant the city has put towards the ultimate construction cost would likely be eventually forfeited to the respective agencies from which they came. At which point, the city would have to, down the line, line up alternative funding from other sources or shoulder the entire burden of construction itself. And of course, the $600,000 in engineering costs and other costs that the city has already put into the project would be a sunk cost.
Are we talking about the Saranac River Trail Phase 2?
Yes.
Yeah.
What money has been already sunk into the project?
Is it about $600K, all told?
Yeah, I'd have to look, but that's, you know, the extent of the funding that we borrowed plus other seed money that's been committed, yeah.
I believe it was,
Yeah.
And that was for hiring the engineers and stuff like that?
That was engineering costs and the purchase of certain right-of-way properties to facilitate construction of Phase 2, plus the demolition of the old Saranac Street Bridge.
I believe that the state was providing $2.1 million for this project. Is that correct?
There is .5 million, 500,000 from the New York State Parks Department. That's specifically for one of the bridges. The 1.4 million from the feds is more general, that can be applied to the project as a whole.
So that adds up to 1.9 million?
Yes.
And then the city's being asked at this point to add another roughly $750,000?
From the amount that the city has already committed, assuming that the bids we receive on the second round align with the engineer's estimate, we would be asking the council to commit somewhere between $200,000 and $250,000 additional dollars from the general fund.
Yeah, you've already appropriated the $588,000
Right.
that's gonna be borrowed recently, or.
If we rejected this project and kept the $588,000 and did not pay the additional $50,000? Then we would have $750,000 to help us combat our current financial woes.
You would.
And I don't really see any point in building a Saranac River Trail to downtown unless we finish the DRI. I think those two go hand in hand. That's just my opinion, but I think unless you have people living downtown, you will have fewer people using that amenity. And I would say that we should push very, very, very hard to complete the DRI in its current form as soon as we possibly can. Otherwise, those two bridges don't make a lot of sense. So,
And just a brief update on the DRI. We met with Prime today based on recent comments from both the planning and the zoning board. They are making another round of changes to the design of the building to try to satisfy the concerns of those board members. They hope to have those design changes done within the next 2 weeks to be presented to the boards at their regularly scheduled July meetings on the 20th and the 27th.
okay, that's good news.
Well, so Director Miller, I'm sorry, I missed the beginning. So last I heard of the Saranac River Trail Phase 2, we declined all the responses to the original RFP, so we can send out another RFP with new specs. What's the timeline that you see with that? Has the new RFP gone out? I guess it's my first question.
No, it has not gone out yet. We have spoken to the funding agencies involved. They have agreed to a reduced scope. And today we just received the updated set of drawings and bid documents from our project engineer, which now have to be reviewed by a number of parties. Once we get final approval of those, we can rebid the project, hopefully getting bids in response that are more closely aligned with what the council has already appropriated the project. But even if they align exactly, we would still be asking the council to appropriate somewhere between an additional $200,000 and $250,000 in order to complete construction of phase 2.
Why would, if they align with what we originally outlined, why would we need another 250,000?
Because when we took a look at the scope of work and what we could feasibly remove from it in order to bring down the cost, there was only so much we could do because of the requirements attached to the funding from New York State DOT and also from New York State Parks. So we can remove some things, but there are certain design elements that we simply can't remove. We can change the materials to a less expensive type. But there is a limit to what we can take out of the scope while still maintaining our ability to get reimbursed from those grant funds after the project is completed. So if we're talking about that, the most we felt comfortable removing, so as to not jeopardize that reimbursement, would, if the bids we receive align exactly with what the engineer's estimate is telling us it should cost to build it, we would still have to come to the council and request an additional appropriation of between $200,000 to $250,000.
Okay, so best case scenario, an extra $200,000 to $250,000.
Correct.
First round, the bids came, what, $750,000 over what the engineer said?
Yep, and we removed roughly $500,000 from the scope, which is where we get the $250,000 additional.
Okay, so so back to the timeline, when is the new RP projected to go out, and when are responses projected to be due roughly?
I would say between 60 and 90 days, we would be in a position to award the work if the council felt it was justified to appropriate any additional funding that was needed for it.
Doesn't that leave things pretty late in getting it completed this year?
Completing the entire project this year is likely not in the cards. The lead times for the bridges themselves are several months at least. So we would be looking at a split construction schedule where some of the scope would be completed in the fall of this year, with the remainder to be completed in 2021.
But if you've already gone through an RFP process, and you already know the bidders, why would it take 60 to 90 days for reconsideration with a modified scope?
Did you say that again, Mayor?
From what I understood, it takes 60 to 90 days to get a contractor lined up to do this new scope, but it's only a modification of something. You've already gone through the entire process, had a successful bidder, et cetera. So why would it take that long for essentially changing the scope somewhat?
It may not take that long, but I don't want to tell the council it's something that we can get done in 30 days and then I can't get it done for 60. So I prefer to overestimate rather than give you something that might be unrealistic. We'll certainly push it forward as quickly as we can, but based on what I've seen, I would say between 60 and 90 days before we get to a point where we can award the project.
Well, it almost sounds like with Mike's, at least in line with what Mike was saying, that it's not that big a hurry because he wants to see what happens with crime. That's been in front of the zoning board and planning board, I think, since February, and if they're making changes, now, who knows when that'll get through.
Yeah, so there's a lot of shifting schedules and you know, things have to align here or there. But we're keeping an eye on everything and we'll certainly keep the council fully informed of any decisions.
I would remind the council that there's no shame in saying no. If something costs too much, or the cost overruns are so great that we just can't bear the burden, then there's absolutely no harm in saying no. And I love that bridge. It would add so much to my neighborhood. I love the old bridge. But I don't see any need for taxpayers to pay too much more than we've already committed to it. There is no harm in backing out of a project. There is no shame in backing out of a project if the cost is too great. I would advise the council to look very, very closely at that possibility.
Okay, if we could move to the next item on the agenda. These are just items that are brought forward from the departments. And Rich, I wonder if you could speak to a little to this transfer. So-
It's just a $400 transfer where the fire department didn't put any money in their print copy line, so they want to move it from office equipment to print and copy.
So it's no new money coming into their budget, they're
No,
moving
it's a transfer
across
from
lines.
their existing budgeted items, yeah.
Anybody have any questions about that?
Aren't allocations within a budget, they don't need to come to the council, do they?
It's the council's budget, so I don't know, changing the line item, we've always done the duty of saying, here's what the department head or the request is for, it's to move from here to there. This doesn't increase the overall general fund budget, it just moves it from one line to the other.
Yeah, I understood that allocations within a budget only require mayor's approval.
While you're looking that up, I'm gonna ask Ethan if he could comment on the two items that he has on the agenda.
Yep, so the two items are for two of the DGP projects. You have 47 Clinton Street. They
Again,
have-
could you just say what the
Better come
DT,
up to the microphone, too.
just, for anybody who's listening, rather than use the abbreviation, just say what it is.
The Downtown Grant Program, it's a project through the DRI, the Downtown Revitalization Initiative, which provided several individual property owners downtown funds to renovate apartments and facades. So for 47 Clinton Street, we had gone out to bid back in late 2019. We got two bids back. The bids came back significantly higher than the property owner had expected based on their preliminary estimate going into the program. The highest bid we received was $161,000. He was expecting the project cost to be around more $110,000 total. So that was unfortunate. We tried to renegotiate with those businesses later on. They were unresponsive, so we went back out to bid. We did get a lower bid, which is why it's in front of you now. They also provided the ability, they gave unit cost for replacing things such as windows. This project itself on 47 Clinton Street has about, I think, 37 total windows they were originally looking to replace. Not all of them are in the worst condition, so he's gonna be able to look at that and prioritize based on the condition of the windows and which ones need it the most, and that can help control the cost for that individual project. And then for 15 Clinton Street, which is the property right next to, I believe, Pizza Bono, which has been vacant for a while, has significant amount of environmental work that needs to accomplish, such as, I think it's the white building right next to Peabody's. So maybe it's on the side of Peabody's now.
Pretty bad looking.
Yeah, 15 Clinton Street. Yeah, completely vacant. So that's one of the projects that we hopefully, after it's completed, we have a vacant building back on the tax rolls that has people who can live in there and businesses that can be on the first floor. But regardless, before they can move forward with any major renovation work, they are looking to take care of asbestos-containing materials, and that is what the quotes they received, and that's what's in front, is just a quote, for about $16,000 to go in and abate the asbestos-containing materials, and that's gonna allow them to move into the next stage, which is really taking care of removing some, gutting the apartment and following lead-based paint protocol, because that's another major environmental concern with that building, part of the reason why it's vacant in the situation it is, so.
Yeah, and both these grants are only, that's what I was saying,
No, they're both, the 15 Clinton Street is $100,000, so the total project, the grant funding only goes up to a 9% match. So this project's gonna go way over that cost. I mean, he was estimated coming into the process about $200,000 in total between all the environmental work, the roof work, and just the general renovation, because it's a whole job. I mean, if you've seen that building, it needs a lot of work. And then I think for 47 Clinton Street, if I recall correctly, he has $76,000, which was awarded. So of course, all this funds is reimbursed at the tail end, so it's at a project completion. So they sign contracts, they pay everything up front, they follow the procedures of the grant and the guidelines. After they complete, they go for reimbursement, and that's when they receive the funding, so.
If I recall, these projects were part of the DRI.
Correct, yep.
And there were supposed to be 10 of them. Is that correct, Ethan?
There was 9 original properties. A couple dropped out due to funding issues because it's up front, and some other reasons. One property was looking to sell, which is against the protocols of the grant, so they dropped out. Some of the funding was then reallocated to food and, food-based. So the farmer's market, an example, and then also in March, you awarded 2 grants to 14 Margaret Street for the building as a whole and the commercial property SIP.
Yeah,
And that project right now is under, which obviously started much later, and then of course COVID had an impact, is under work right now. They're finalizing their engineering and environmental testing, and then they'll go out to bid, just like the other projects.
So these DGP projects, I think the first ones were approved back in late 2017, and you've been, I can't remember any ribbon cuttings. Is there any that have been actually completed in the 3 years?
So in late 2000, so they were awarded in 2017, and then we didn't have any kickoff with any of them till about August of 2018. Right now, the furthest, due to many reasons, is one project, 21 Bridge Street. He's been able to renovate the interior and have already had it rented out. He's working on the facade, and that should be completed before the end of the summer. So the project as a whole, and the grant program as a whole, has a sunset date of December 2020. So the property, all the projects and the program as a whole, in theory, need to be completed by then. So a lot of properties are, moving forward as fast as they can. The state does allow for extensions as long as you can provide, as a program, a whole reasonable cost. So you need to have an explanation of what delayed. For a lot of these property owners, COVID had a direct impact. We had one property on Bridge Street. She was undergoing construction. COVID hit, she had to let go of she had to cancel the contract because of economic reasons.
How many have been canceled
Total canceled, we have 3 projects.
out of 10?
Out of the original, I believe, 10 or 9.
So they've all been given 3.5 years to complete. We're 3 years into them, and they all have to be completed in another half year.
Correct. And that's without an extension from the state. Any extension from the state is essentially, if they grant it as for a program as a whole, which would include any work with the farmer's market. And essentially what we need is, this is where they are, this is how they're moving forward, and this is the new date which all work is expected to be completed. But right now, I'm working with all the properties, and we are moving forward as fast as we can, and fast as they can, really. It's their funds moving forward as of now, so.
Thank you.
Yep.
We have one other item, so I'm gonna look for a motion to move items 1 through 4 to the regular agenda. Second?
That's you.
That's me. Okay, second.
Council Barbell?
Yes.
Mayor Reed?
Yes.
Is there any old business to bring before?
I have some. It kind of, you just jogged my memory, but it's not anything I'll ask you for it. So the farmer's market, I would like an update on their grant. It's my understanding that it's still good, even though the department or division of budgets, is taking back a lot of grants. But Ethan was just saying that the DGP things, and I think the farmer's market was passed through the DGP or due at the end of the year. So does the farmer's market need to be completed by the end of the year?
So that's a discussion that we do need to have with HCR. Right now, the current plan is to wait until the prime project is approved and any litigation successfully resolved before committing to construction of the improvements to the farmer's market building down on Green Street.
Why wait? Because the farmer's market, I mean, basically through the farmer's market is we've done what the farmer's market wanted, right? And it's my understanding they still are excited to move down to Green Street. They want to move down to Green Street. They would have loved to be there this year. Obviously, COVID stops construction there, so I understand why it's not built right now. But I don't really understand why we would wait until the prime project is done, because it's not really dependent on the prime project.
Well, it kind of is, isn't it? Because if nothing can ever be developed in Durkee Street, why would you move the farmer's market at all and then potentially constrain Harborside, which may end up actually being developed earlier than Durkee Street at this pace?
Well, so I'm confused there, cause like Mike, when this was discussed a couple weeks ago, was saying no matter what, we're gonna develop Turkey Street. The farmer's market seems to be near.
But how do you know that?
successful life.
How do you know that right now?
How do I know what?
That in your final analysis, that it might not be just fine to keep the farmer's market where it is.
So I never had a problem keeping the farmer's market where it is, but the farmer's market wanted to move, we got a grant funding to move
But
it.
the only reason they wanted to move is because of the Durkey Street development. So until you have clarification of the Durkey Street development, why would you invest, probably close to $400,000 by the time we all add everything up, to moving the farmer's market into a place where you may not need to move at all?
I see the argument there, but doesn't the farmer's market still wanna move? It's my
Then I think
understanding
that
they
if
do.
you ask
Yes.
them, would they like to move, but they have the option of staying in Durkey Street because there's not gonna be any development there, I think they would probably choose just to stay put.
Well, I've asked them that numerous times and they gave a different answer, but, so if we don't move it, if the prime project doesn't get approved and we don't move it, like, we're gonna lose that grant funding, right?
Not necessarily, depending on how flexible HCR is willing to be, since that funding was approved through the downtown grant program. It could theoretically be folded back into that larger pot of money, and then
That needs to be finished by the end of the year.
that needs to be finished by the end of the year currently, yes.
But nothing's gonna be, I mean, I think I saw a memo about a month ago saying we're supposed to finish everything by the end of the year, from ESD, and I don't think anything is gonna be finished by the end of the year, so.
Well, that's worrying, but I guess my point is, the Division of Budgets from the state put out their, proclamation B1223, which said anything not under contract is getting clawed back and those grants are not gonna be there. The prime project is under contract, the farmer's market is under contract, but it sounds to me we're looking at losing that money if we don't act upon it soon. Am I wrong?
If nothing changes and HCR is not willing to grant us an extension on the DGP funding and we get to the end of the year and we have not commenced construction on the farmer's market, it is possible that we could lose part of that funding, yes.
And then if the prime project does get approved, then we won't be able to move the farmer's market. Or if if the prime project doesn't get approved, then we go forward with something else or doing something else with that land, the farmer's market is still gonna be there and same obstacle.
Yes, I mean, the farmer's market operating in its current location does present an issue for any type of development on the Durkey Street lot. The improvements to the Green Street building and the relocation there was always intended to alleviate that problem, if not for the prime development, for any subsequent development that comes after it. But it becomes a question of, given the financial circumstances that the city finds itself in, does it make sense to commit that money now before there is a final resolution of the prime project, which would necessitate the relocation of the market?
But the state's paying for the new farmer's market.
The state's paying for the majority of it, but the city would still be on the hook for roughly $30,000 in match.
In match.
Yeah.
I talk to the farmer's market, pretty frequently, and I know they're excited to move, and they wanna move. They're not happy with their place currently now, unless I'm misinformed.
No, I mean, they're constrained in their current location. It's an older building. They see quite a few possibilities with the new location. But they understand that the city's under, severe financial strain, and it's a tough situation.
I just don't wanna get in a situation where we're losing that money, and then we're stuck wishing we'd moved the farmer's market. But
Patrick's got a good point.
I don't have I don't have a personal stake in whether the farmer's market moves, but if they wanna move, but I also, the good thing about moving the farmer's market was it matched our idea that we've been talking about for years as a sort of anchor point to helping develop that area. And the mayor brought up the harbor side, but the harbor side, I mean, that's the 11-acre plot that's not contiguous to, but doesn't overlap with the MLD site on Green Street. But the beauty of the farmer's market, it could be a launching point for other things down there. I know ice cream from the rooftops all the time. We've got a dog park and a playground down there, and I still want those down
Mhm.
there. So don't forget about those, but the farmer's market is a good anchoring point to help develop down there. I mean, we do have an RP response from Skyward on building, 2 hotels and an office building down there.
Mhm.
And, but those things have come up before, I don't know, that's in its very nascent stages, I don't know how much we can depend on that, but we certainly wanna get doing something down there. If the prime development happens, we want recreation, I want recreation, I don't know what everyone else wants. Recreation down there, dog park, playground, splash pad, I don't care, but Mike's brought up the pavilion, that's part of the farmer's market, so it seems to me that we should at least consider whether it's worth it to go forward, irrespective of what happens with the prime project. If the farmer's market wants to move down there, we have a grant funding to move down there, that we could conceivably lose by the end of the year.
Mhm.
And right now, I mean, the MLD's gone. If we just, MLD goes and we have nothing down there, what do we have to show for that? There's a lot of
Patrick,
promise
we're
down
we're
there.
almost at 5 o'clock, so I hate to cut you off, but.
Yeah, I
maybe
mean,
you
if the
can-
council
maybe
would
you can
like,
bring this
um,
up under new business or something on the council agenda, and you can continue this conversation if you wish.
I mean, I'm pretty much done. I think I've made I'm not saying you have to do it this way, or we have to do it this way, but I have serious concerns about that farm.
Yeah, and there's certainly risks involved with either course of action, waiting until the prime project is resolved or moving forward now. If the council would like, I could put together a more in-depth analysis for your review. If after that, it's the consensus that you'd like to move forward immediately, we can certainly do that.
Okay.
Thanks, Matt.
Sure.
Thank you, Matt.
Is there any new business? Hearing none, have a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second,
Counselor Barbell?
yes.
Mayor Reed?
Yes. Let's begin the common council tonight, please, with the pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of
the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call, please.
Mayor Reed?
Present.
Counselor Barbell?
Here?
Counselor Kelly?
Here?
Counselor Gibbs? Here. Counselor Brody? Counselor McFarland?
Yeah.
Counselor Moore?
Here.
Just a couple of short things, a few short things. But first of all, the concert you authorized is still proceeding this weekend, but the state would not authorize a drive-in fireworks display. I'm very grateful that Benjamin Pomerantz, Laura Cravon, and Derek Hopkins are still continuing their efforts for the Saturday concert and putting together a whole series for the summer that I'm sure they'll be approaching you on, and trust the common council will be very interested in supporting them, knowing that we really have no finances to offer at this time. I also thank PrimeLink for making available to the residents and visitors of our great city free wireless services for Trinity Park from this building here. It's really a wonderful gesture on their part in this COVID era, because a lot of people, as you know, have a really hard time accessing internet and broadband, especially with the library being closed, etc. And as you know, I'd like to thank 3 candidates who are willing to dedicate the next 4 years to service to the residents of our city, and the remaining 2 candidates who I hope will conduct clean campaigns that focus on the concrete things each of them will do to rebuild our city and lower taxes in this incredibly challenging time. Of course, I wish them the best of luck. I'm looking forward to returning to my private life and devoting more time to work on my farm. I've invested 15 years to the economic development of this region, the last 4 years as a resident candidate and then mayor of this great city. I'm looking forward to the next facet of my life. I leave, though, with great pride in this common council, and I turn the agenda over to you all, knowing you share with me a great concern about the viability of our city and the important role it plays in our region. Thank you. Please continue.
Resolved that the minutes of the regular meeting of the Common Council held on June 25th, 2020 are approved and placed on file among the public records of the city clerk's office.
Moved by Councillor Gibbs, second by Councillor Kelly. Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passed.
Resolved that the payrolls of the various departments of the city of Plattsburgh for the week ending July 1st, 2020 in the amount of $412,487.14 are authorized and allowed, and the mayor and the city clerk are hereby empowered and directed to sign warrants drawn on the city chamberlain for the payment thereof.
Moved by Councillor Kelly, second by Councillor Barbell. Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
operations, Councilor Barbell.
No, we've just completed our meeting, and we'll have more to say later in the month.
City infrastructure, Councilor Moore.
I didn't have anything to report this time.
We're meeting next week, right, Jeff? Is it next week or infrastructure? Yeah, okay.
Finance and budget, Councilor Kelly.
Nothing new to add, Mayor.
Public safety, Councilor Good.
Yes, we had, one that I'm sure gonna be a series of meetings regarding budget, and, also I'm already looking at certain things from the governor's order, about police reform that, I wanted to get started. One thing that I already engaged in with Dean is looking at no-knock warrants. We discussed with Chief Ritter, demilitarization of the city police department. And then we threw around some ideas about what are some things that we could eliminate from the budget. And so it's gonna be one of many, just like it always is. We'll continue to work on that. So that's all I have at this time.
Thank you. Plattsburgh Public Library, Councilor McFarland.
Yes, the library is looking to reopen soon. I believe they have an open date of August 3rd. And I believe they're putting their catalog online at plattsburghlive.org. And you can call the library to get some items. I believe they're to arrange pickup times. I think they're gonna start opening August 3rd, at least with staff back, and do a step opening, and hopefully be fully open this fall. Other than that, no other updates.
And MLD Board President, Councilor McFarland.
No updates at this time.
Resolved, the reports of the Pittsburgh River received and any written reports are placed on file among the public records of the city clerk's office. Moved by Councilor Gibbs and second by Councilor Barbell. Further discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Passed. No correspondence with recommendations of the board. At this time, please continue.
Resolved that the bills ordered by the common council for the week ending July 3rd, 2020 in the amount of $144,600.40 are authorized and allowed, and the mayor and the city clerk are hereby authorized and directed to sign warrants drawn on the city chamberlain for the payment thereof.
Moved by Councilor Moore, second by Councilor Kelly. Discussion. All in favor? Opposed? Passed. Is there any persons wishing to address the council on items on the agenda tonight? Seeing none, please continue.
Resolved in accordance with the request, therefore the common council approves two bond resolutions, each authorizing $240,000 of additional debt to be issued by the city of Plattsburgh to provide funding for appropriations authorized by the common council on June 18th, 2020 under the capital projects created for the RV Pavone Parking Plaza construction and for the Broad Street parking lot renovation.
Moved by Councilor Barbell, second by Councilor Kelly. Discussion.
Did we do this last week or?
It was on for initial last week.
Oh, okay. Thanks.
Roll call.
Councilor
Mayor,
Barbell?
I have questions, if you don't mind. This resolution is approving capital projects for those two initiatives, Arnie Pavone Parking Plaza and the Broad Street parking lot renovation. It was assumed at one time that the financial restructuring board was going to pay for the renovation of those two lots, provided that the city came up with a paid parking scheme. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. And then, is it assumed now that the financial restructuring board has recanted and they are not going to reimburse our expenses? Is this a recognition of that fact?
No, this, they're, like everything related to state funding, the amount that they pledged and will receive a fraction between 0 and 100%. And they're not gonna tell us whether it's 0% or 100% quite yet, because of their own fiscal challenges.
Okay, so that's why we're going ahead and bonding these two projects.
Correct, and I think we are hoping at one point, I think the engineering estimates were that this project would be completed for somewhere around $900,000 all in, and I think
purchase of the property, demolition, and now construction of the lot, I think it's 1.2 million?
Yeah, 1.2 million, six.
1,206.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So FRB was going to cover about 900,000, so we thought, and based on the engineering analysis and estimates, would cover it. So now the taxpayers are paying an extra few $100,000 into it.
I have a question on that. So the parking lot construction, the estimated cost was $150,000. I see the revised estimated cost is $389,000. What accounted for that increase?
So the 150,000, that number was provided at a time when we were contemplating an arrangement with Clinton County whereby they would handle the bulk of the paving work in exchange for a equal amount of credit against parking permits that their downtown employees would ultimately have to buy with the city's new parking system.
Yeah.
Subsequent discussions with the county, it proved to be an unworkable arrangement. So what you're looking at there is strictly the cost of everything but the paving that was originally involved in the work.
I wasn't part of those discussions with the county, and when did that happen, and why did it break down?
It happened maybe a year and a half, I don't know, maybe a year and a half ago. I don't recall exactly why it broke down. It had something to do with labor laws, or something involving labor rules and county workers.
Yeah, we have three county legislators that represent the city, and would have intervened on our behalf.
Well, if we are fortunate and the FRB reimburses us at 100%, can we apply the funds to the amount that we bonded here?
Yes.
We can just go ahead and pay that off?
If and when we borrow these funds, it goes through our debt service to pay for the bonding. Now, if we get a refund, like we did with the DEC on the Aggie landfill, we put that amount into the debt service fund as a reserve and apply it against the debt service for these projects going forward.
Which
Okay,
saves the general fund subsequently from having to do other payments later on.
Absolutely right.
So it essentially goes back into the general fund in some sense.
Yep.
thank you for that explanation.
So right now, we're just hoping that the state comes through with the FRB funding, so hopefully it's the
Yes.
total amount.
Yes, and we're gonna have some excess parking in downtown Plattsburgh if the DRI is not completed. And I think at that point, we need to decide, you know, which of these parking lots we intend to keep and which we intend to demolish. And I would recommend that we demolish the Durkee Street lot if these other lots are completed, or at least a portion of it, and turn that into grassy area, and put a big sign up on it that says, this property available for development. I know that's not part of this discussion, but we need to talk about, you know, sort of a bigger picture of what do we do with all this extra parking that we're going to have.
Well, yeah, that's kind of what I was bringing up last week a little bit, but it's also interesting because you're right, the FRB funds, if they do come in, do require a managed parking system,
Yes,
which kind of would be an awkward situation with a lot of extra capacity.
yes, if we have all that extra capacity, why are we charging for it? So let's reduce the capacity and thereby increase the demand.
Yeah, well, let's see what happens.
Yeah, we certainly do hope the DRI project goes forward, the Durkee Street project goes forward, but that is something we need to think about. What happens to that lot when it's all said and done?
Any further discussion on this bond issue? Roll call?
Counselor Barbell?
Yes.
Counselor Kelly?
Yes,
Counselor Gibbs?
Yes.
Counselor McFarland?
Yes.
Counselor Moore?
Yes,
Resolved in accordance with the request, therefore, the common council approves the city chamberlain to adjust the 2020 general fund budget by a transfer of $400,000, sorry.
$400.
Oh, $400, what a choice, sorry. $400 from fire office equipment to fire print and copy for an unbudgeted expense line item.
Moved by Councilor Barbell, second by Councilor Kelly, discussion.
did we work out this procedural issue you guys were talking about in the committee?
Sort of. So, Charter Section C6-6 subsection D discusses budget amendments after adoption. And just to read that language so we're all on the same page, it says transfer appropriations. The Common Council may by resolution transfer an unencumbered appropriation from one budget category to another. The mayor may transfer an appropriation for an activity or program within a department to another activity or program within such a department, and shall inform the council of such action on or before the next regular council meeting. So that's the source material. We looked to what this resolution says. It discusses a transfer from one line item to another. So I don't think there's strong feelings either way, but if the council is taking that action, arguably it's usurping the mayor's authority pursuant to that second portion, which allows the mayor to transfer funds within a department so long as he advises the council. So while there's not strong feelings, if we take that tact as opposed to this tact, I think we do need to establish a system so that Rich is not left blowing in the wind making these transfers. He needs some guidance and some paper trail so that, in this case, I think an argument can certainly be made that this is the second category that's within the mayor's authority, but we certainly need a process that the mayor can direct the Chamberlain and the mayor can then report back to the council as to what's heard. So, we don't have strong feelings. The charter doesn't explicitly say budget line items. It discusses budget categories or activities or programs. In this case, it seems to be the latter, where it's it's an internal transfer within a department for a printing expense. So it's a small item. So I would, all things being equal, tend to agree that it's a mayor's role, so long as we have a real process where you can direct Rich can have a paper trail, and then the council can be informed. So if that's in place, great. If it's not yet in place, then we would need to develop that.
So it says the mayor may transfer an appropriation for an activity or program within a department to another activity or program within such department and shall inform the council. So it says he may, not that he has to, so we could probably do this. Would the council be usurping the mayor's authority or just acting in?
To the extent that the council is approving something that the mayor can do without the council approval.
But that wouldn't be more usurping his authority. That means he could have done it beforehand and then told us about it. But the first part of that says transfer of appropriations. The common council may by resolution transfer an unencumbered appropriation from one budget category to the other. So we have that authority, although wider in scope.
Yeah, the budget category, quote unquote, is not defined, so whether a line item transfers a budget category, I don't know, but based on the fact that the second part of that sentence talks about the mayor doing a transfer within the department, would tend to suggest that the budget category is a broader item, not such a discrete item.
No, on the first sentence there, it says appropriation for the common council to be able to transfer from one budget category to another. On the second, it says activity or program within a department. Is there a difference between an appropriation and an activity and a program?
There's not a definition, so respect to what's our interpretation of it, so no, there's no definition.
So,
Either way, I don't think Rich has strong feelings. You need a paper trail.
Well, the only thing is, it's like, the council has to be informed of the change, so, this way it does it. But if the mayor's gonna just say, go ahead and move it, then the council needs to just say, yeah, I've been informed, and if I have that for the record, I make the change. I think, either way is fine.
so are you asking that we, back to, or what are we doing today? Are we
Yeah.
voting on this resolution and then providing what we think we should?
I mean, if we're going the second option, then we table this or withdraw this or defeat it, well, no, I guess we,
I have a suggestion.
Withdraw it, yeah.
Would it be acceptable to change the word approves on the first line to acknowledges?
I think we would strike, to go that route, we would strike everything before the common council, so we say the common council acknowledges the mayor's direction to the Chamberlain to adjust and go from there.
Yeah.
See, I still have a question on the activity or program, because I'm looking at this and I see for equipment goes from fire office equipment to fire print and copy. So that would, you know, is that an appropriation related to an activity or program? To me, an activity or program would be like an event or something like that.
You're not gonna get much further guidance from the charter, hence this long, semi-long-winded discussion about what do we do about this $400.
But sure, it must be narrower than appropriation, right? Like, cause the first sentence says, an unencumbered appropriation can be switched from category to another. And the manner and chance for an appropriation for an activity or program, so an activity or program, it's only put in there to restrict the definition of appropriation in some way.
I think what it's doing is giving a placeholder for return within the department's budget.
Every line item is an appropriation in the budget, every one. The common council says, I'm appropriating these funds to spend it in this way. Spend this much on fire equipment, this much on copy, this much on payroll. You have to appropriate everything before it's spent.
But under that interpretation, the second sentence in the charter is absolutely meaningless without any content whatsoever. Anyway.
Yeah.
Moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Roll call?
Counselor Barbell?
Yes.
Counselor Kelly?
Yes.
Counselor Gibbs?
Yes.
Counselor McFarland?
Yes.
Counselor Moore?
Yes,
Resolved in accordance with the request, therefore the common council accepts and authorizes the property owner to enter into a contract with the lowest price.
So I'd like to waive the reading of the resolutions, seven C and seven D. They were discussed in the committee. So I would read the resolution.
Second by Councilor Barbell. Discussion? Or all in favor, pardon me?
Aye.
Opposed? Discussion on the items C and D themselves?
We had a very good discussion during the work session, and Ethan explained to us that, you know, this is one of a number of projects, or I'm sorry, two of a number of projects. So I felt comfortable. Appreciate the explanation.
Okay, roll call?
Counselor Barbell?
Yes.
Counselor Kelly?
Yes.
Counselor Gibbs?
Yes.
Counselor McFarland?
Yes.
Counselor Moore?
yes,
Resolved in accordance with the request, therefore the common council approves Edgar and Sons Incorporated to close Lynn Street between Bailey Avenue and Riley Avenue for 3 days from July 6th through 8th, 2020 for the replacement of 2 sewer laterals.
Moved by Councilor Gibbs and second by Councilor Barbell. Discussion?
Yes, that's a pretty big section of street. I don't see anyone from the Department of Public Works. I'm just curious if anyone knows, like, what about the people living on that street? Will there be access for them to get through, or are they all parking on Bailey Avenue and Riley Avenue for 3 days and walking to their houses? I assume it's the former. I don't know.
I have no idea. This just came across our desk late this afternoon.
There's nothing to do. I'm sure
Generally,
they're
have
doing
the
local
streets
traffic.
open for local traffic,
Yeah,
local residents.
that's,
Even though they're driving on, unpaved surfaces, they allow them to do it in order to get to their homes. Generally, I'm not sure what they're doing with this one specifically, but it's a general approach that I've seen in the past.
yeah, that's what I assume.
well, if there's sewer laterals, and they need to be replaced, it has to be done, so it's not like you can say we're not gonna do it.
I believe this had the support of DPW when you asked them. Any further questions? Roll call?
Counselor Barbell?
Yes.
Counselor Kelly?
Yes.
Counselor Gibbs?
Yes.
Counselor McFarland?
Yes.
Counselor Moore?
Yes,
No travel requests at this time. Are there any resolutions for initial consideration? Any new business for council reports?
Yes, I have, I just wanted to share with everyone that we had our first Public Safety Citizens Review Panel meeting this week. Emily Stacy was nominated and she accepted the role of chair, and Caprice Johnson vice chair, and I was nominated to be the recorder, so I accepted that. We've set our meeting times at 2 o'clock on Wednesdays, well, at least for the remainder of this month, presumably until the work is done. Really great group of people, lots of dynamic experience. I think is very exciting. Everybody's got a lot of thoughtful considerations and lots of goodwill, so I think this is gonna be really great for the city.
Fantastic, thank you.
Yeah,
Elizabeth, how often is that committee meeting?
once a week.
Once
And
a
it
week.
is open to the public. It's, you know, public doesn't come in to comment like what we have here. They are welcome to come in and observe. They're not participating in the meetings.
Yes, that was posted on the YouTube
Yeah.
channel.
Mhm.
And then it's once a week, or what time?
2 o'clock on Wednesdays.
Also, I saw.
In here. Mhm.
I saw that one of the members contacted the sheriff's office, and the sheriff's
Yes.
department is actually going through the same process
Mhm.
with a citizens committee as well, so it'll provide some interesting exchange of information between the two citizen committees. I think that'll be maybe a much broader view of law enforcement
Mhm.
in the county.
I agree.
Any other additional council reports or new business?
Yeah, I just remembered, are we getting an update on the overtime per, Counselor Barbell's, resolution? I forget when the resolution was passed. Were there any
I'm
lumps and
sorry,
bumps of
you're right,
overtime?
I had confused that, and the other request you had is to ask for the bargaining units to see if they'd be willing to make any concessions. I was preoccupied with that one, and after speaking with legal counsel, they said that really any sorts of discussions like those has to really include legal counsel and go from legal counsel of the city to legal counsel of the unions. So we're in the process that we are hoping to have that report ready. Actually, tomorrow, we schedule a meeting for him tomorrow at 11:30. And then we realized that we're meeting today, so I'm kind of out of sync on that one. I apologize. We'll see what I can do for next week and hopefully have a report then.
So,
that's fine.
so you have a meeting tomorrow with, your labor council.
To find out how those negotiations are going. Yeah.
Okay, and so the negotiation suggestion is what exactly?
Well, I think the spirit was in an effort to help with the budget and avoid further work actions,
Mhm.
to see if everybody would agree to furlough one day a month,
Okay.
one day every 2 weeks, or a pay cut. But since all those are negotiated items, we had to involve legal counsel in it,
Right.
rather than have just me negotiating with 8 union officials for 4 unions, 2 at a time.
Yeah, that's a pretty heavy lift.
Yeah, and we just, with any sort of renegotiation of an existing contract, you have to be incredibly careful doing it properly for fear of being accused of trying to bypass the collective bargaining procedure. So that's
Mhm.
where we are. So I hope to have more clarity on that tomorrow.
Have you invited any city councilors to attend that meeting at 11:30 tomorrow?
No, I hadn't. You all had charged me to have those discussions with,
Okay.
so I charged our legal, labor lawyer to initiate those discussions.
Okay. Just curious about that.
Any other new business or council reports? How about closing public comments from the public on any issue of mutual concern? Seeing none, how about a motion to adjourn? Moved by Councilor Gibbs and seconded by Councilor Moore. Roll call?
Counselor Barbell?
Yes.
Counselor Kelly?
Yes.
Counselor Gibbs?
Yes.
Counselor McFarland?
Yes.
Counselor Moore?
Yes.
Have a great 4th of July weekend, long weekend, everybody. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.